In today's gospel, Jesus appears once again, this time, though, to 7 of his disciples. This is the third time the resurrected Jesus appears. In Mark 16, he appears to Mary Magdalene, and she runs to tell the apostles, and Scripture says they don't believe her. Mark goes on to tell of the 2 men on the road to Emmaus. They returned and told the others, but they didn't believe them either. Even in today's gospel, they don't recognize Jesus until they had 153 fish in their net. That would get any fisherman's attention. They needed a sign. And in our stubborn blindness, we all need a sign. We need our own experience. When someone tells us their conversion story, we might listen attentively, but it's still their encounter with the risen Jesus. Rarely does that satisfy or convert us. It might, however, cause us to begin our own conversion experience. Dixie was reminding me yesterday morning about a charismatic conference we went to in Salamanca, Spain, 43 years ago. And on this trip, there was a Dutch Reformed minister by the name of Dr. David Duplessis. And he had a saying that we have bantered around ever since then. He says, God has no grandchildren. Think about that for a minute. God has no grandchildren. We all need to have him as our own Father, Lord, and God. Rarely does that satisfy or convert us. We need our own encounter with the risen Jesus before we can cry out, he is risen. On Easter Sunday, Father Darren shared how in the Eastern Church, they greet one another on Easter morning with he is risen. And they respond, indeed, he has risen. And in doing this, they are affirming one another's encounter with the risen Jesus. The point that I'm trying to make is this. The Gospels might be a good read, but there's something missing. What's missing is your name and my name. A good author can draw us into his or her narrative, but until we've been there and done that, it's someone else's story. Until we become Mary Magdalene, until we become Cleopas on the road to Emmaus, they are still someone else's story. The beauty and the challenge of Easter is that we are invited during this entire Easter season to come and see. And this reminds me of another incident many years ago at a conference, and Archbishop McKinney, the Archbishop of Grand Rapids, was speaking. And he was telling us about a retreat that he had gone on in northern Michigan. And while he was there, there was what do we call it? Guy that cuts down trees. Yeah. Anyhow, this man asked him, he says he looked like a holy man, and he asked him, he says, do you know what the 5 most important words are in the gospel? And he thought for a minute. He says, no, I guess I don't. And he said, they are come and see. go forth. Those are the 5 most important words in the gospel. We need to find Jesus not at such a distance from shores. So often that's our story, isn't it? These apostles were 100 yards from shore. We want to play it safe and stay in the boat 100 yards from shore. We don't want anyone to think that we've gone off the edge. Like Peter, we need to jump in and close the gap. The gap is our unrepented sin. Jesus is calling out to each one of us, come, have breakfast with me. Come, sup with me. Hopefully, that's why you are here this evening, to sup with him. And it begins with a proclamation of faith. He has risen. Your homework for this week is this: to identify and give thanks for that conversion moment when you encountered the risen Jesus.